Hey, have you ever wondered what all the stuff is in the header of the tracks within Audacity? We've got the scale, we've got, the sliders up there, we've got mute and solo. How does all that stuff work? That's what I want to talk about in this episode as we start to look at the anatomy of a track within Audacity. Hey friends, Mike Adams here with the Audacity Bootcamp. In this video, I want to talk just a few minutes about the makeup or the anatomy of an audio track within Audacity and look at some of the things that we normally don't hear about and explain those to you and show you what they do and what their purpose is. I've got a track open here that I've used in the last video as well. It's just a simple audio track of me rambling on about the lighting that I use in these videos. And it's leveled for a -19 LUFS at the moment. Not a whole lot of editing other than that, but it's kind of just in the raw. But it'll suit our purposes here as we talk about the anatomy of a track within Audacity. So let's take a look at this. If you look here in the header, the first thing that we'll see is the scale here that goes from a +1 to a -1, with 0 being the silent point or the middle point. And the waveform, which is in the blue, is centered around that 0 point. And so the amplitude or the volume level of the waveform is symbolized in the peaks and valleys here of the waveform itself. And we can see that the highest peak is about a 0.7 and the lowest peak is around a 0.5. And so it kind of centers around that 0 point, and it gives us that amplitude. We can see, remember, a waveform is a visual representation of whatever was spoken or whatever was recorded into Audacity. And in a future video, we'll talk about the anatomy of a waveform as well, and we'll kind of analyze this a little bit more. But it's really just a digital representation of the analog sound that's coming out of my mouth that was recorded into Audacity at that point in time as it was sampled. But if we look at the track, and if we go back to that scale there, I can move my mouse over here into the scale, and I can change that scale. Now I'm holding down Control while I click my mouse. Again, I'm on a Mac. I think in Windows it's either Alt or maybe you can right-click it. I'm not sure. I'll let you experiment with that. Well, when I do a new track, whenever you do a new track, create a new track in Audacity, it always comes up in the default of linear unless you change that in your preferences. It's always in this linear view, which is why linear is checked. And linear is just that scale from +1 to -1. It's a good way to look at your waveform. It gives you enough information to be able to edit the waveform and to be able to manipulate it and do things with it. But you can change that. If you prefer to look in decibel view, you can change that by simply clicking on dB. And as soon as you click on dB, you'll notice that, boy, you get a lot more information in that waveform, don't you? It really fills up the screen at this point. Now, you'll also notice that the scale changed. The scale is no longer +1 to -1, but it's now reading in decibels. And of course, 0 dB is louder than a -60 dB. And so now this scale goes from a +0 to a -0 with a -60 or a -60 dB as the quiet spot, as the quiet point within the waveform. And that's the line that you see through the middle of the waveform. And so I can change this view. If I prefer to edit, or if you prefer to edit in decibel view, this is how you change it. Now, I don't really like this view in terms of editing. It's just too much information for me. Sometimes I go here to do other things, and in future videos, I'll be talking about those to you as well. But for the most part, 99% of my time, I like to be in that linear view. So if I go back and press down, hold down Control again, and click, I can go back to my linear view. Now, let me show you a couple of other tricks that we can do on this scale here while I've got it open. If we come back and we Control click, or again right click or Alt click if you've got a Windows machine, I can also zoom in. I can zoom in by 1/2 or I can zoom in by 2. If I zoom in by 1/2, it just scrunches up the waveform, gives me a higher level view of it. It's like I backed away from it a little bit. And it also changed my scale. You'll see now that my scale is 0.5 to 1 to 1.5 to 2. And so you can see that I really zoomed out on it, and now my scale is from a +2 to a -2 instead of a +1 to a -1. Now if I come back in, Control click one more time, I can zoom in twice, which means that I have gotten twice as close as I was originally to the waveform, and now you'll see that my scale is a 0.5 to a minus 0.5. So I zoomed in 2 times, and that's how close I am to the waveform. Now I'm going to control click one more time, and I'm going to click zoom reset, and it puts it back to its original configuration, which is +1 to a -1 in that linear scale. So let's control click one more time in here, and this time let's go to half wave. If I go to half wave, what it does is it only shows me half the wave. So it's named appropriately, but in this case I only see the top half of the wave. You might prefer to edit this way. This might be easier for you. It's not easier for me. It just seems kind of foreign to me, but for some, I suppose it's easier. But if this is something that you want to do, you can see now that your scale is from a +1 to a 0, with 0 being the quiet point. Now, let me show you something here that kind of gets your attention at first if you're not familiar with it. If I go back and I control click into here, I have no way to get back to full wave. If I click half wave again, it just stays at half wave. But don't let that bother you, because what we need to do, again, is come back in, click it, and do a zoom reset. So zoom reset will always take the waveform back to its original configuration. I can also just choose to zoom in or zoom out. If I control click again, I can zoom in. If I control click again, I can zoom back out. And you'll notice that when I zoom out, that my scale is still a +1 to a -1, but now my scale is in steps of 0.05 instead of in steps of 0.5, which it originally was. So if I come back and I control click one more time and I do a zoom reset, life is good. It takes me right back to where I was. Now before I let you go, let me show you a couple more things about the anatomy of a track. Of course, we have the mute and solo buttons. When I mute the track, it's grayed out, telling me that it's muted. When I solo the track, it's of course blue. If I had multiple tracks in here, the other tracks in my project would at this point be gray, telling me that they're muted out because I've soloed this one track. Probably already know that, but just in case, there it is. We also have a volume control slider or a gain slider here that we can take from a -28 up to a +30, whatever, 36 it looks like. And this is, again, this is gain for the entire track. Let me put this back to 0. Or get as close to 0 as I can here. Somewhere in there, there it is. Close enough. And now I'm going to press the space bar to play it, and then I'm going to adjust the gain while it plays. Hey, Mike Adams here with the Audacity Bootcamp. You know, I'm in a small room here. I'm in a room that's 10 feet by 11 feet. And so you heard some clipping on there. If you were looking at the level bar up in the top of the screen, you saw that it went into the red. It was clipping pretty good. Again, that volume slider affects the volume of the entire track, not just what your little piece that you're working on, but the entire track. So keep that in mind, because when you go to export your tracks as an MP3 or a WAV, whatever you're going to export them as, whatever settings you have here in this slider bar are going to be exported with that track. And it's the same with the balance. If I take the balance left or right, let's say I pan all the way to the left, and I don't know if you'll be able to hear this or not. I don't know if you've got headphones on, but I'm going to play a little bit of it. Hey, Mike Adams here with the Audacity Bootcamp. You know, So with it panned all the way to the left, I'm just getting audio out of the left side. I'm only hearing it on the left side in my headphones instead of on both sides. So if I've got this panned over one way or the other, and I didn't intend to, and I export it that way, it's going to be exported that way. My exported file is going to have audio forced either left or right if I don't center that back into the middle. So that's a quick look at the pan. Again, I can select the track here by selecting the select button. And I select the whole track, and I know it's selected because it turned blue. And I have a little window that pops up there, and it says Command click to deselect. And that's true. I can't just click it again. I'm clicking it right now, and nothing's happening. I have to hold Command click, which I'm assuming is Control click in Windows, in order to deselect it. Now, when I move my mouse up a little bit, that little tooltip window pops up and says I have to hit Command click to select or deselect. That is not true. You can just click it once without Command to select it. But to deselect it, you have to do Command click. Now, I can also minimize that track. That's what this arrow right here is. I can collapse it down. If I have a lot of tracks in my project and I'm done with this one and I want to get on to something else, this is a way to get it off the screen a little bit so that it's not taking up so much real estate. So that's a brief look at the anatomy of a track in Audacity. Those are some of the tools that are there for you that you can use. I'm going to talk about sample rates with you in a future video. I want to make that one video because that's a big topic. And I want to talk about the sample rates that we see here in the header and also down below, and how to change those and why you would or would not want to change them. So I'm going to save that for a future video, and we'll talk about that separate because, again, that's a big topic, and that's a topic all to its own. So for now, I'm going to let you go. If you like what's going on here at the Audacity Bootcamp, be sure to subscribe and click that bell so that you get notified. Also, just a reminder, I teach online courses on Audacity at udemy.com. My courses right now, currently I have 54 lectures in my Audacity Bootcamp. It's called Audacity Bootcamp Beginner to Advanced, and that's what I tried to do with it. Take someone who is very beginning and take them to an advanced level within Audacity, where we look at some of these more advanced topics and advanced features. So again, that's at udemy.com. I'll put that link down below. It's also up in the header. And until next time, y'all take care, and I'll see you again soon.